as we enter into a new era of leadership, empowerment, and influence. In this season 2 of Transcend with M, we want to highlight the power that lies underneath us, underneath you. On this new season, we will showcase true stories about women who, one way or another, are exercising influence by tapping on their strength and their own story. I hope, just like me, that you let all these women and their stories empower you today and shape your tomorrow, just like they have helped me. So welcome to Season 2 of Transcend with M. Know her story. Welcome everyone to another episode of Transcend with M, Season 2, Know Her Story. And today we have with us Julie Webb. Julie and her teammates are building something great. Less than a year old, MPV Financial is a boutique-style firm offering insurance and wealth management solutions to its clientele. So Julie heads up the insurance practice as a VP and Director of Risk Services. Starting a business in 2019, Julie, I got to start that again, 2020. All right, we got to start over. You see, this is good. This is good. I don't know where I got 2019 from. It's 2020 right in front of my face.
Sometimes we wish we could go back, right?
Maybe that's why. It's on the back of my head. Okay, let's just start all over again. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
All right. Welcome everyone to another episode of Transcend with Him on Season 2, Know Her Story. And today I am really excited because we have Julie Webb. And Julie and I met about, what will you say, 2 months ago, Julie? 3 months ago, give it a take?
Yes.
We are in a women's network together, and I am so excited to have her here. So Julie and her teammates are building something great, something exceptional. And less than a year old, MPV Financial is a boutique-style firm offering insurance and wealth management solutions to its clientele. So Julie heads up the insurance practice as the VP and Director of Risk Services. This business started in 2020. So it has not been easy and it has definitely been challenging, but the team is actually confident about the future and is excited about what the experience MPV is offering and actually the difference that they are being able to make to all their clientele. So a little bit about Julie, and Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, but Julie is a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh. Hail to the pit, right?
Yes.
She started her career with a famous direct writer we all know because of their famous commercials, Geico. And there she was first introduced to the whole world of insurance and had the honor of serving in several leadership roles. So after having her first child, she and her husband, made the decision to move back home to Pennsylvania. And they put down roots and there and just wanted to be closer to the family. So, how's it been being back home?
We love it. It was the best decision for us. I grew up close to my grandparents, and my kids now have the opportunity to do the same thing, and to see the bond that they have makes it worth it. So it's great.
That's amazing. So after relocating to Pennsylvania, you transitioned to the insurance agency side, and you led the Mid-Atlantic region for a large insurance agency network. Then during your tenure there, you developed an extreme amount of respect and admiration for the insurance agency owners, and so much that now you had the opportunity to build MPV Financial, and you had to take it. You had to run with the idea. You had to take the bull by the horns and make it happen. So that is amazing. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I first came to the independent agency side, I was so intrigued by all of the agency owners that I met, and they all had a story to tell.
Yeah.
And I loved just sitting and listening to, whether it was their father's father that started the agency, or it was a friend and they partnered up and 30 years later built a successful agency. It was just so interesting for me to learn about that. And I caught the entrepreneur bug early on in my tenure there. And so I learned a lot while I was at that firm and made a lot of great connections, but always had that desire to try it for myself. And when this opportunity presented itself, I knew I had to take it. It was one of those things where I thought, if I don't take this opportunity, I'm going to regret it later. So it's, as I mentioned, and you shared in my intro, starting an agency in 2020 has not been without its challenges. It hasn't gone exactly how I planned, but what does? And so I'm very excited about what we've built so far and what 2021 in the future has in store for us.
Yeah. So mom, wife, business owner, entrepreneur, 2020. Tell me more about your decision of opening the business and how have you been able to find balance and courage to continue to move forward?
Sometimes you have to take it day by day, Monica, day by day, hour by hour.
Yeah.
And some days are better than others, if
Yeah.
I'm being honest with you. For me, it has been a challenge to balance it all. And, I've learned that work-life balance doesn't exist. It's more about just defining your whole life, and there are different pieces within it. So as you mentioned, I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a wife, I'm a business leader. And it's just, for me, it's finding over the course of 24 hours and also making time to sleep,
Yeah.
where do I play those different roles? And so, 2020 has given us a completely different schedule. No longer are you going into the office from 8 to 6 or 9 to 5 or whatever it is. So, I was just thinking about this morning. I'm an early person, and so I get up at 5 a.m. every day. And usually that's like quiet time for me. But this morning it was work time. And so by 8 o'clock, I had put in 3 hours of work and I was feeling really good. And so that allows me then to spend some time with my kids, make sure I'm getting them set up for virtual learning. And now I'm talking to you. And later on today, we're going to do some gingerbread house decorating with my extended family over Zoom.
That's
So,
amazing.
if 2020 has taught us anything, it's patience and flexibility, right?
Right, right. So not only that, but you are a true believer of continuing education. So you completed your CIC, your Series 65, and you're currently also pursuing the CPCU. So you're not only doing everything that you're doing, but you're also studying and educating yourself just to be a better leader, a better person. How does that all fit with, um, making sure that you don't lose track of everything that's going on?
For me, like you said, I'm a big believer in continuing education
Yeah.
and investing in yourself,
Mhm.
and especially in the insurance industry, because the world around us is changing more so this year than in years past.
Mhm.
And we have to stay on top of those things. And I can't do my job well
Yeah.
unless I'm educated and well versed and up to date on what's going on in the world. So for me, it's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. So
Mm.
it's just prioritizing it and carving out time for it.
How do you feel education fits um, with the empowerment that we should all have? How does it play a role for everyone listening today? How do you feel education plays a vital role into any woman that it's growing, that wants to grow, that wants to become a leader, to become whatever they want to become?
Yeah, I think it's, like what I just said. It's a need to have. You have to prioritize it, because if you don't prioritize it, nobody else will.
Yeah.
And once you've prioritized it, it's like I get to do this. Like looking at things like, I have to do this. No, I get to do this. Like, how fortunate am I to be able to, this year I studied and independently studied and sat for the Series 65 exam. And I had to look at that as, this is something I get to do. This is going to make me better at my career. This is going to open up new opportunities for me. So for me, it's a win, right? For my team, it's a win, because now I'm a better resource for them. And then I also spend a lot of time thinking about the example that I'm setting for my kids. And while I was studying for that Series 65 exam, I didn't have as much time for them, but they saw me studying and working towards something. And I hope that instills a work ethic in them, where they'll be able to do the same thing and, see the result that I got from that.
Yeah. I totally agree. And you have two beautiful children, right?
Yes,
kindergarten and third grade. Is that right?
That is, yes.
I truly believe that setting the example, they will absorb that, because my daughter Veronica, even though I always thought that, oh my God, I'm working too much. I don't have enough time for her. She doesn't deserve this. Now that she's older, she's in fourth grade. It's actually helping her with her own independence. And she actually has this desire of actually working and helping, and because that's what she has seen from her dad and myself. Like, we are dedicated, we work hard, we actually are providers to our family. We continue to making sure that we share everything and we learn from one another. So believe me, it will translate. You might not see it like immediately, but at some point it will come out, and then you will be like, should I have done that? Because they become the mini version of yourself. They do.
Oh yeah,
they do.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, they're definitely sponges, and they're picking up things that you might not realize they are, good and bad.
Yeah, that's true. So tell me about the silver linings of all of this. What wins, what struggles we can celebrate with you? Because it's always great to talk about the wins, but there are also struggles that make you grow. So during this transition, you going from a mid-regional position that you were comfortable with, to taking the leap into owning your own business, and with everything happening, what are the silver linings, wins, struggles that we can celebrate with you? And I say celebrate because there is nothing wrong with like struggling or succeeding. I think they're both equally important. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I'm celebrating at the end of 2020 is just the agency that we've built so far. On the insurance side, we're a team of two, and we have plans to grow that in 2021. But the fact that through this pandemic, that we were able to build this agency and get insurance companies excited to partner with us and be with us at the ground level, starting at zero, that has been for me something to celebrate, and something that I will be celebrating as we turn the calendar into 2021. I think the other thing is, one of the biggest changes or transitions for me was, in my prior role, I was working with a lot of agencies and carriers at a high level. I was brought in if there was a problem to solve, or if someone needed a contact, I was able to facilitate that. But I was not in the weeds selling insurance and servicing insurance and prospecting. And I'm in the weeds now. And one thing that's been super helpful for me to keep in mind is this idea of having a growth mindset. So,
Yeah.
for example, I don't know how to quote a policy in XYZ company's system yet. Just adding those three little letters at the end of a sentence to I don't know how to do that yet has been like life-changing for me.
Yeah.
Just to show that, I don't know how to do it right now, but I'll figure it out and I will get it done.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you know, the business and insurance for a little bit. So tell everyone what, you know, MPB Financial is about. Tell us like your idea, what is that you want to accomplish? What is that MPB is going to do?
Sure. Yeah, and thank you for asking that. So we are a part of a community bank here in Pennsylvania, and the community bank is an amazing organization. They are highly involved in the communities in which they operate and well respected. And so we're so fortunate to have that partnership.
Mhm.
And we're really trying to replicate that with MPB Financial. So I should stop saying we're building. We've built
Yeah,
an insurance
it's
agency and
here.
it's
It's
here,
here.
right? She's here. She's here. And alongside that, we're building a wealth management practice. And we really want to be a one-stop shop for our customers. We can do banking, insurance, wealth, business advisory. We want them to trust us, our customers. We want to earn their trust, I should say, so that they can come to us and we can take care of those things so that they can focus on what's important in their life, whether that's their family, whether that's their business, leaving a legacy. We want to take care of the financial pieces so that they can focus on what they do best. And that's really what we're about. We want to be involved in the communities in which we operate, just like the bank is. And we value those relationships that the bank has established already, and we just want to make them stronger.
Yeah. And I think it's something different too than your typical, insurance agency out there. I think, if something that we have learned, it's like you have to reimagine everything that you are trying to build just because you have the traditional agencies that been around for a long time. You have the agencies that are completely focusing more on insure tech. Then you have the big carriers, and now there is this surge of a mix of both, which is kind of what you're trying to do. It's the mix of the financial, the mix of, leveraging the technology, also the leveraging the community and making sure that there is involvement there. So it's like a little bit of, we got to take a little bit from the past and a little bit from the future and put it together because they both are important. So it is so great that what you're not trying to build, but what you're building and what you have built so far. And remember that it's here. You are not, you will continue to build, but it is here. So how would you say you will, do you feel more empowered now than you were before just because of everything that you're looking forward to learn and to do? Like you mentioned, you are now on the weeds. So are you more empowered now that you were before just because you now know exactly what goes into it, day in and day out?
Yeah, so you mentioned it in my intro. I have a tremendous amount of respect for agency owners. And, now I may not be an owner, but I'm a leader of an agency.
Yeah.
And I have an even higher level of respect now, having, been
Yeah.
in the weeds for a few months.
Yeah.
And now, I think that it is more empowering, I should say, because I always wondered if I could do it. I always, I told you I had that entrepreneurial bug, and I always
Yeah.
thought, I wonder if I was in that role, would I do this or would I do that? And now I'm actually living it, and I'm getting a chance to experience it. And that's been empowering because I've shown myself that I can do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get it right, everything right on the first try, but
Nope.
I'll figure it out. And mistakes are okay.
Yeah.
I joke that I'm a recovering perfectionist. And so, I'm trying to bring my full self to the picture and not just my perfect self.
Yeah.
And so yes, I think the short answer to your question is I do feel more empowered now that I'm living and breathing it every day.
Yeah. You keep going back to say, I am a leader. I am not a business owner. I am a leader. Tell me why that makes such a big difference to you.
Wow, that's a really good question, Monica, and I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Well, we are in our woman network, and our woman network is a leadership network. And I think it is so great that you can do that without even noticing, because there is a lot of people out there that kind of like gloat about being a business owner or an entrepreneur or stuff like that. But if something I learned is that our brains are being rewired to think like leaders and not like business owners or, anything like that. So you keep going back to that. And I need to ask you why it's so important. And it does matter, but I want people to hear why it matters.
So I've been fortunate in my career to have experienced many different leadership roles and myself. And I've also been led by some really great leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And I think why I tend to use that word over owner is that I think a leader is someone who listens to either the people that are on their team or their clients or their prospects.
Yeah.
And when I think of a leader, I think of someone who's listening and offering guidance and solving problems where they can, working on the business and not just in the business.
Yeah.
And I want to think of myself as a leader and not just an owner.
That's amazing. So that ties in very well with my next question for you, which is, who empowers you as a leader?
It's another good question.
I'm putting you a little bit of a spot here, but this is what it's about, right?
This is fun. I'm learning a lot about myself too as we have this conversation, Monica. At first I wasn't sure how I was going to answer that question. And then I just had like this internal dialogue with myself to say, almost like, isn't it obvious, Julie? So I have a group of friends who are like me, wives, moms. Some of them are business leaders, professionals. They're all professionals. And we have not all been together in person probably in over a year now because of COVID.
Yeah.
But we build each other up through a group message. And we were just the other day, sort of, like I said, building each other up, giving each other kudos, because we were all recently, a few of us were involved in trying to help one of our friends purchase a home, and it ultimately fell through. But she was just talking about how impressed she was with our group, because we're a very positive group. We're not afraid to talk about the challenges that we're all experiencing, but we're all there for each other. And this is not a commercial for Peloton, but Peloton has brought us together. And, you know, like,
I don't think Peloton needs any type of like commercials out there or any type of endorsement. They're doing very good on their own.
right. And if you have to cut that out, that's okay.
No, I won't. I won't.
But it's brought us together because it's something that, you know, we have a lot in common. That's one thing we have in common, and we can all come together and celebrate each other. You know, for example, today, one of us did her 850th ride at lunchtime, and I couldn't be on because I was working, but I was able to just jump on really quick and give her a high five. Like, I know that sounds simple, but it's just a testament to how we're committed to each other, and we build each other up, and we're there for each other, even if it is just through a group chat. We hope that someday in the not so distant future, we'll all be able to be together physically. But
Yeah,
for now, that group chat keeps me going.
that's amazing. What do you do personally to empower other women around you? I know you just talk about a little bit your, you know, your group of girlfriends and whatnot, but as a leader, what do you do to empower others?
So I feel really strongly that as women leaders, we have to be intentional about lifting other women up. We can't just say that it's important. Our actions have to back it up.
Yeah.
And so at work, I mentor a young woman. We are in the process of building a networking group for women that can meet in small groups virtually for now. And we're hoping to launch that after the beginning of the new year. And like I said, we just have to be intentional about it. We have to, so often as women, I think we don't do a good enough job of supporting each other. We've been told for so long that there's only so many seats at the table for us. And
Yeah.
so we compete more for those one or two seats at the table instead of thinking, why can't there be 4 or 5 of us at the table?
Right.
And so those are just a couple of examples. I mentioned my group of friends that I have. I also have a younger sister, and I like to think that, you know, the relationship that we have has empowered her to make decisions in her personal and professional life that maybe she wouldn't have thought she was capable of, or wouldn't have gone for on her own. So, and then, you know, the last thing I will share is I think we have to be, we talked about this before, but like focused on the next generation, right?
Yeah.
So I have a son and a daughter.
Very.
And yeah, I'll share this. You know, one of the friends I mentioned before, we started a Girl Scout troop this year because through quarantine, I was reading all of these books about strong female leaders, and so many of them credited their first leadership experiences to experiences they had in Girl Scouts. And so I thought, I've got to learn more about this. I was never a Girl Scout. And so now, so now my friend and I, who have little girls that are both in kindergarten, we've started a Daisy troop, and we are intentionally focusing on teaching them about, for example, this year, voting and making sure that their voice is heard, and standing up for themselves, and even at 5 and 6 years old, being a leader.
Mm-hmm. It is so important because it's a seed that you plant from beginning of times for our kids. Like, you have to do it. You have to let them speak. You have to let them, you know, express their ideas and their opinions, and not really shut them down at 100%. Like, we need to be able to kind of like guide them through the idea. To It's not about disrespect. It's not about, you know, disagreeing with everything that mom or dad said, but there is certainly power about sitting down and say, okay, tell me more about why you feel that way, or tell me more about why do you think that needs to be done that way, instead of like, no, this is the way, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
there is something powerful about that. And I think the little I know about Girl Scouts is that they actually provide with that type of mentality and openness of letting them think and solve the problems on their own rather than them telling them what to do or how to do it. I think we were reading that book Culture Code not too long ago, and there is an experiment they talk about there with kindergartners. Do you remember that from the
I
book?
do. Yes.
And it is so true. I was like, I just want to work with kindergartners all the
Yeah.
time.
Right. Because they just, they're not at that age, they're not conditioned like we are to think
Yeah,
a certain way. And
right.
so that example is a good one because the kindergartners they're all building the same thing, but the
Yeah,
kindergartners as opposed to grown lawyers and professionals just jump in and start trying things.
yeah,
And yeah, I agree with you. I think it goes back to what we were talking about before and what I was saying about a leader. As a parent, you're a leader too, right?
right.
And you have to be a good listener and you have to let your kids make mistakes.
Mm.
And I was just telling somebody earlier, one of my children, when they were still going to school, brought home this coloring page and it said, "Mistakes are proof that you're trying." And I literally want to make copies of it and paste it up all over my house because, I grew up, like I said, as a perfectionist. I had to do everything perfect and I didn't want to fail. And I'm trying not to make my kids feel that same way. And it's hard as a parent because,
Yes,
like you said, you want them you don't want them to experience the pain that comes with making mistakes, but
yeah,
it's healthy and it helps them grow.
yeah. The most important thing, I think, for us as adults is that, just like you mentioned, we're so ingrained that we need to be as good as we can be. But at the same time, we need to create consciousness around failure is okay. Failing is a way of succeeding. And I think the difference between us adults and little kids is that they're not afraid to fail. We are.
Yeah,
And we
absolutely.
we have to be a little bit more like them. So
Yes.
tell me, how have you been able to transcend with your life goals and focus by shifting a little, you know, your mindset? You said you're very focused on, a positive growth mindset. So how have you been able to transcend with that?
Okay, another good question. And do you just so I make sure I answer it? Here's the perfectionist in me coming out, Monica.
Yeah, so that's okay.
Are you looking recently or like over a
Overall,
lifetime?
I think over your lifetime, because we are creatures of growth, right? So
Hmm.
we all come from one place and now we're in another. And we keep transcending from point A to that point C that we don't know what that looks like, because that point C is the point that we just are done, right? And we're not done. We always continue to transcend day over day, week over week. So I guess, over your lifetime, how have you been able to transcend with shifting your behaviors and shifting your mindset? It is a work in progress, but where were you at one point and where you're now? What is the difference?
So I like the way you just explained that. And it made me think of something that I've thought about actually a lot since I took this role.
Yeah.
And I'll try not to go too far in the past, but I will tell you, like so many of us, I never thought I'd find myself in insurance.
Yeah.
When I was in high school and even college, probably up until, a few months before I graduated, I wanted to work for a nonprofit and save the world.
Yeah.
And I liked helping people. That's what I wanted to be about. And it just didn't happen. And I ended up meeting a recruiter from Geico, as you mentioned, and the rest is history, right? But as I look back on it now, that I have perspective, every choice I made, I feel like has lined up to get me to where I am today. So I met that recruiter. I worked for Geico. I had a great experience there. I learned about personal insurance, and I actually worked on the homeowner side for Geico, which many of you who are listening might know actually acts or functions like an independent agent.
Yeah.
And so I got that experience. I left Geico and went to work for independent agencies where I had the opportunity to learn the ins and outs of that world and build relationships with companies and people in the agency world. Sarah, who brought us together on the table, was one of those people that I met. Yeah. And that allowed me to transition into the role that I'm in now. If it weren't for those experiences that I had in each of those pieces of my professional life, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now.
Right.
And I think it's so hard as a young person to think about like how your life is going to line up. Right. And I think this year, maybe call it time, or the time that the year has given us to reflect, have looked back on it and said, wow, like that all like lined up almost like it was supposed to happen that way.
Right.
And
but when you think that way, that means that you're on the right place. And that's beautiful.
I like to think so. And, you know, I'm a big believer in like finding your why, and, you know, a reader of Simon Sinek. And, you know, I feel like my why is still what it was when I was in high school and college. And that is that I want to help people. I've just found that insurance is the mechanism that lets me do that.
Yeah.
And I just have to keep reminding myself of that as I continue to grow. And even though I'm only, you know, a few months into this current role, think about what's next for me.
Right. So to complete the podcast and to end it in a really, really good note, what will you tell women out there that are struggling right now, that have had a tough year, just like, you know, you had, but at the same time, you know, not giving up and trying to get out there and do their best? What do you have to tell them today? What message of empowerment will you give them today?
That's a lot of pressure.
I just love how your eyes light up.
I promise you I'll get to the answer, but I feel like I have to share something with you first.
That's
and
okay.
It's something that I learned about early on in quarantine. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about something called comparative suffering. Mm-hmm. And you probably know what it is, but you know, if you've not heard of it before, it's basically, it does us no good. We all know comparison is the thief of all things good, right?
Right.
And, you know, we can't compare ourselves to other people and think that, you know, we're not as successful as them or not as popular as them, you know, for younger people. And it's the same thing with our suffering. It's not fair to yourself to say, I had a really tough day today, but I shouldn't think about that because there are people who have lost their jobs in this pandemic. Mm-hmm. What we need to focus on is having enough empathy and compassion for ourselves, and know that empathy and compassion are not finite. There's enough of it to go around. And I would just say, give yourself some grace, like take care of yourself first so that you're able to take care of other people when you need to. And I think having that in the back of my mind, and I'm so thankful that I listened to that podcast when I did, because it's just put things in perspective for me as we've gone through these past few months. You know, we're all going through the same pandemic, but all of our situations are a little bit different.
Yes.
And so, you know, we just need to have some grace for ourselves and for each other. And think small. Don't try and don't tell yourself that, just because you can't do it all right now, that you can't do something. And so make a list of things that you want to accomplish and check off one, check off half of one, but just start somewhere.
Mhm.
And for me, that boosts my mood a little bit when I'm able to do that. And it gives me the courage to take the next step and to keep moving forward.
That's amazing. I think, it is really important not to compare ourselves to others. I think that's one of I call it I, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think, I love social media. Social media is a great outlet for a lot of things. And thank goodness for us, because we are able to connect. We're able to provide messages. We're able to help people. But at the same time, it's like the detriment of society, because
Mm-hmm.
we just we just compare ourselves so much, and we just are not letting ourselves kind of like absorb that it is okay not to be okay. Like, not because, like,
Yes.
I'm gonna use you as an example. Not, I don't know, nothing that happened this way, but like, Julie opened her business and Julie's doing very well, and Julie this and Julie that, and all these good things are there. But what they don't know is that Julie also has had to maybe take on a second job, or Julie has had to, she only sleeps 4 hours a night, or like stuff like that. And people don't take the time to share the real story behind what it's the reality of everyone. And I think if people actually did, not to compare their suffering, but to compare their ability to actually handle those situations and what comes with it, we will be in a much better position and world.
Yes. Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
so I
I
do,
think,
I do, I do recommend, people to listen, to that podcast. You can send me the information and I'll put it on our write up, because I didn't listen to it, but I definitely have had readings about it. And I think it is so important for people to actually, come down to earth. It's like a come down to Jesus moment type of thing. And I think,
yes.
it is really important that we take the time to kind of do a pat in the back and say, hey, yes, it was a tough day, but remember, this was good. This was good. You have accomplished X, you have accomplished Y. And yes, the road is rocky, but you can do it. Maybe it's taking you longer than you wanted to, or maybe you have encountered a couple of roadblocks that you weren't expecting, but that's life. That's life. And we have to continue moving forward. So, are you ready for 5 quick hitters? I promise they're not difficult.
I'm ready.
Okay. Transcending is.
Moving from one station in life to the next.
Okay. Favorite food.
Chocolate. Is that a food group? Does that count?
I love it. Okay. Favorite music.
I love it all. It depends on the day.
Okay.
Right now, I'm really on a Mumford and Sons kick.
Okay. Favorite book.
Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
Okay. And favorite woman influencer.
I would say right now, Michelle Obama.
She's doing great things, isn't she? I love
Yes.
this woman. She reminds me of my mother. My mother has that body, hair, skin color, um, very strong, opinionated, and very forthcoming.
Mm-hmm.
Those are characteristics of my mom that I see in her. And every time I see her or listen to her podcast, which is really good, and I also read her book. It is extraordinary. Uh,
Yes.
she is something that I think we all aspire to be someday.
Well, and I think it doesn't surprise me that, you enjoyed her book, because I did too. And, that might have been my second favorite book on my list.
Yeah,
But her story is a story of transcending, right?
yes, it
She
is.
thought she was going to be something, and she was checking all these boxes, and she got there and she realized that she wasn't happy and fulfilled, and so she pivoted. And
Yeah.
I just feel like that's such an important message for us all to hear.
And I also, what I really liked most about her book was her vulnerability and honesty. I was like, what? Michelle Obama did this when she was 13? No way. So
Right?
through the
Yeah.
entire book, I was like, she did that? No. They went through that? No.
Yes.
Because, you wouldn't, you see them as, all of us outsiders just started seeing them when their careers and where are their peak. Like we had no idea anything that they had to go through like to get there. So for me, reading that book, and I cannot wait to read about Barack Obama's book because that just came out last week, I think, or something. Uh,
Hmm.
but I think, every time I read a book that has that sort of impact in me, like I just keep it forever and I keep reading them and reading them because every time I read them, I uncover something more that I probably just overlooked because I was so into like that situation that I was like, oh my God.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that book, it's not going in the library book sale.
right. So, for women out there today, if you had the power to change something, what would it be?
If I had the power to change something, it would be reversing the impact that COVID-19 has had on women in the workforce.
Mm, why?
I know that we were making great strides as women in the professional world.
Yeah.
And I don't just say that that's important because I'm a woman in the professional world. There are studies and facts and statistics that show that when women are in leadership positions, companies perform better.
Yeah.
And this pandemic has had a negative bias to women, and more of us are having to step out of our professional roles to take care of children, of loved ones,
Yeah.
just keep their family afloat.
Yeah.
And it will take us years to get back to where we were at the beginning of 2020. And that's just really heartbreaking to me. And I think it just goes back to what we were talking about earlier about how we have to be intentional about lifting up other women. And
Yeah.
for me right now, I don't know the answer to how we impact what's happened over
Yeah.
the past few months, but I'm going to try and find a way to help it, whether it's hiring those women back when they're ready to come back, or offering them classes or skill development so that they don't lose what they have. I
Yeah.
just want to find a way to have an impact.
Yeah. And I think that's one of my reasons for these podcasts too. We cannot give up. We really have to support each other. We need to be a resource for one another. And we really have to learn from everything and everyone that has gone through different experiences that can help us one way or another. And I cannot thank you enough for you to open up, being willing to be here, sharing your story, sharing your opinion. I think we all have the power within us to make a difference. Um, And I really thank you for, everything that you are doing, that you're planning to do, and for your commitment towards not just yourself, but your family and all of us, because we are all learning from one another. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you all next week.
Hey y'all, thanks for listening. I hope that you found this episode inspiring and that one way or another you were able to identify with today's story. Remember, like Catherine Stockett said, you is kind, you is smart, you is important. Start believing in yourself and empower those around you, because you never know when suddenly someone can realize they have a choice in what they could believe and do in this world. If you don't follow us yet, please subscribe at our YouTube channel, which is under my name, Monica Duani. You can also follow us on Instagram at TranscendwithM. Or if you just want to chat with me one-on-one, make sure to just connect on LinkedIn and send me a message. It's Monica Duani, and I'm always here for you. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next week.